Thank you all so much for coming to the Tech Stars stage this morning. My name is Lynn Kelso. I'm from Microsoft, and I'm really excited to be joining you today. This is actually my first time at Adweek New York as a speaker, and kind of pulling up to the Lincoln Center AMC this morning. There was quite a buzz outside, so I'm delighted to be here. So the topic this morning is all about how you can multiply your creativity using artificial intelligence. Now, this might sound like a little bit of a weird combination, right? Because typically when we think about AI, we think all about the math and the data and the tech, and we really don't think about creativity. But the research that we'll take you through today shows that marketers who are leveraging AI to rethink their customer engagement are benefiting hugely, reaping great benefits in terms of ROI and return on ad spend. So hopefully by the end of this session, we will convince you that there actually is a deep and important link between artificial intelligence and creativity. Now, I always like to get kind of the read of the room, so forgive me for a couple audience participation questions, but I'm really curious. You came to the Techstars stage today. How many of you would consider yourself to be AI practitioners, like you are actively developing AI applications? Not seeing too many hands. How many people are really enthusiastic about AI? You read about it all the time, okay? Yes, we're getting some. How many are like curious, and feel like you're kind of on your learning journey with AI? A couple more, good. And how many really are tired of this buzzword and tired of hearing about AI, but you think you need to be here anyway? Yes, honesty, I love it, awesome. Okay, well, we hope to have something for all of you today. So what I love about marketing, what I love about our discipline is that it has always been both a left and a right-brained activity, right? On the right side of the brain, you have all the wonderful creativity, the people who come up with beautiful creative and who write very compelling stories that speak to universal themes but crystallize in an individual's emotion. And all of that is absolutely necessary and powers the effectiveness of what we do. But equally, marketing and advertising are all about data and measurement and understanding which story speaks to the audience in the most effective way. And when we think about artificial intelligence, like I mentioned in the beginning, we tend to think of it very much on the left-hand side of the quadrant. But what we'll share with you today is that you can really leverage the power of AI to unleash your own creativity and to unleash innovation in terms of how you manage your customer's experience. So I urge you to start rethinking the connection between AI and creativity. And let me roll just a quick thought piece on that.
Creativity is the most sought-after skill on earth, according to LinkedIn data. In the World Economic Forum's list of most important skills, it's jumped from number 10 to number 3 in just 5 years. At a time of advancing automation, creativity remains the essential differentiator of greater value than at any other point in human history. The question isn't whether creativity still matters in the age of artificial intelligence. The real question is, what does creativity mean now? How do we combine human originality with data and technology to stand out and be striking? How can we use AI to keep challenging and inspiring? How do we blend the distinct capabilities for originality of human and machine? How do we unlock creative potential where it never existed before? How do we keep asking the questions nobody has asked? The essence of creativity is taking the amazing things available to everyone and twisting, mixing, and reimagining them to create something more amazing still. It has always pushed the boundaries of what's possible, and what's possible just got a whole lot bigger. What does creativity now mean? Well, it's going to be a lot of fun finding out.
So Microsoft recently engaged in some research, and we spoke to over 200 marketers across the US and the UK, partnering with a firm called Ad Perceptions. And one of the comments that we got from a VP of digital marketing was, hey, look, marketers shouldn't be afraid of AI, right? If they can figure out how to harness it combined with the marketer's expertise and creativity, you can create a lot of magic. And that's absolutely the position we take at Microsoft. So at Microsoft, we want to democratize AI, and we want to help people move beyond that fear that, AI is bad for humans and the robots are going to take all of our jobs, and really think about artificial intelligence as augmenting human capabilities, right? Computers and machines can do a lot of things well that frankly would take us tons and tons of time. And so used properly, AI can really multiply our impact. But as you might have heard if you attended the last session, there are also lots of things to think through in terms of how we use AI, the ethics of AI, the diversity of what goes into it. But for marketers, let me dive in a little bit to some, first of all, let me just define AI. Because as I said at the beginning, this is used as an umbrella term. And some of us, even if we're really interested in this topic, are a little bit sick of it. But there are two really key concepts underneath the umbrella term of artificial intelligence. The first one is machine learning. And machine learning is when you create an algorithm that is able to reason over a large data set and parse it and find patterns, spot trends, and make predictions. And the important thing about machine learning is that it is always learning. So as the algorithm gets more data, it is always iterating, it is always improving, it is always reducing its error rates. So it's not just automation, as one of the panelists said in the last panel, it is truly machine learning. The second piece is cognitive services. And the way I think about cognitive services, these are any time you can get a machine to take on a capability that we would ordinarily associate with humans, right? So vision. For instance, Microsoft has a Seeing AI app, which helps about 1 million vision impaired people to read a menu or understand what's happening as they walk to work every day. Or speech technologies. Think about Alexa, who probably sits on your kitchen counter, or Cortana or Siri. Natural language, and I'll give you a couple really interesting examples of natural language cognitive services in this presentation, and also knowledge. So AI is the combination of machine learning and cognitive services, or either one of those, and we'll show you lots of great examples of each today. So let's jump into this research that I earlier mentioned, and it will help us understand how AI can unlock your creativity. So as I mentioned, we did this research with a firm called Ad Perceptions, 200 marketers in the US and the UK. Now, these marketers were both marketers on the client side and within agencies. And importantly, and really interestingly, these were marketers from companies of all sizes. So as I share the research, you're just going to assume that these are the marketers at the big brands with the big budgets. But the reality is the high performers in this study that I'll talk about represent companies of all size. Now, what we found, I'll start with this little Venn diagram here. What we found is that today, marketers are largely falling into one of two camps. So there are marketers who are really great at performance marketing. They are all into the data, they are all into the measurement, they are iterating as they go in terms of their programmatic or their search campaigns, and they are really optimizing for return on investment and return on ad spend. And that is wonderful. There are a ton of people out there who are really good at performance marketing, and God bless them. On the other side, you have a set of marketers who are really, really focused on making their customer decision journey and their customer experience the best that it can be. So these people are obsessed with understanding what are all of the possible customer touch points. They are putting themselves in the shoes of their customers. Very often, these organizations have a chief customer experience officer whose job is to drive a seamless customer experience across all of the silos and all of the touch points that a brand may have. So we've got the people who are obsessed with the customer experience, the people who are obsessed with performance marketing. 80% of marketers today are falling into one of those two camps, and only 20% are equally good at both. But the magic is that the marketers or the marketing teams who are combining those capabilities are absolutely getting outsized performance. They're driving more revenue, they're reducing costs, they're getting much stronger ROI. And so as I go through this presentation, I'm going to refer to this group as the top performers, and I'll refer to the other set as the learners, right? And we're all on a learning journey. Now, we call the folks who have that combination of customer experience obsession and performance marketing, we say that those people have the X factor. We call it our customer experience quotient. Now, interestingly enough, 80% of marketers in the study are struggling with AI and machine learning. Now, conversely, the folks that I just described as the high performers in our study, they are twice as likely to be using AI technologies than the other folks in the study, than the learners. And I think that that absolutely makes a ton of sense. So let's start to understand how they're using AI. So when it comes to AI technologies, just to kind of set up the graph, the royal blue bar, these are the top performers. The lighter blue represent the folks who we'd call learners. You can see that the top performers are using a combination of cognitive services, things like speech and natural language capabilities, as well as chatbots and digital assistants. But when it comes to then the benefits of customer engagement that they're seeing, by far cognitive services is the runaway winner. So 88% of marketers who are using that service today are finding that it really is helping them to reshape their customer experience. And I'll share a great example of that with you in just a second. In terms of the benefit that these marketers are getting from their AI investment, they're obviously getting great marketing performance, they're increasing customer engagement, they're reducing service costs and driving revenue. So the benefits are super, super clear. Now, one interesting subset of our research is to understand how agencies and marketers are doing, and there are some significant differences. So the agencies here are the lighter color blue, and you can see that relative to marketers, they are far more invested in using cognitive services, whereas marketers are very, very invested in creating digital assistants, which I think makes perfect sense. When it comes to improvement to customer engagement, though, you can see that both, whenever they are using cognitive services, both agencies and marketers are getting a ton of value, and agencies, when they do support the digital assistant creation of their clients, they're seeing huge benefit there as well. Now, out of this research, there is a concerning finding, right? I think all of the stuff I just shared totally makes sense, totally logical. But the fact of the matter is, we're starting to get into an AI divide. So 45% of the top performers in our study are already invested in AI applications or are going to be investing more in the next 12 months. Whereas only 10% of the rest of the population plan to invest in AI in the next 12 months. And that's really concerning, because when I share with you what AI is doing for some of our clients and the customer engagement benefits that they're getting, I start to really get worried about the divide we're creating. And so we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end. But first, let me make this real for you, and let me share our first case study. So this case study is about Telefonica. Telefonica, has anybody heard of Telefonica? Back to the audience participation. Yes, awesome, a couple folks in the audience. Telefonica is a super large telecom based in Madrid, Spain. They have over 350 million customers in 17 countries. And they're a very old brand. They're over 100 years old. And so what they wanted to do to really modernize their brand and bring their customer experience together is to create their own digital assistant who could follow their customers wherever they were in their journey, either in their purchase journey or as a customer, you can check your mobile bill with their digital assistant. You can even change the channel on your cable box with their digital assistant. So they developed their digital assistant Aura with Microsoft Azure and bot services. And let's take a look at what they've done.
As an engineer, I believe in constantly moving forward. I love that feeling of progress. I'm finding new ways to get there. So, how do you move a company forward? Telefónica has nearly 100 years of history.
Imagine being part of a team in which you can find data scientists, data engineers, you can find designers, linguists, researchers.
We connect millions of people every day with technology. We want to bring them into the future. With AI, the moment was right to find a new path. So we transform again. We have become data-driven.
Okay, Aura.
Our conversational AI, Aura, lets us put people first.
We are using artificial intelligence to change the way we are relating to customers. One of the reasons we began to use Microsoft technologies was because it offered an open framework.
It was very easy for all my development team to understand the tools.
We can very fast and very easy move into the use cases we want to develop for our customers.
Using tools like Azure Bot Service and Luis, we keep getting new insights and we are applying them into our core business. Microsoft AI was a key piece in our strategy because they have the tools, the platform, the full ecosystem that we needed. Today, technology is learning our language instead of the other way around. With Microsoft AI, we are forging new paths. This is what drives us as developers.
So I think that's a great case study of this research that we've been sharing, right? This idea that, obsession over your customer touch points, obsession with performance marketing, and putting it together with the power of technology. Now, let's talk about a new dimension of AI, because how many of you have engaged with a chatbot, right? Like a customer service chatbot. I've seen a couple, hands raised. And, if you're like me, probably your chatbot experiences are not that compelling yet, right? We're at the very beginning stages of this new kind of technology. So indeed, like the last time I was on an airline website working with a chatbot, it was like pulling teeth. Like, I had to answer all these discrete questions and not much value was coming back. And that tees up the problem of empathy, right? Because for AI to actually be seamless and to add value, you have to actually be able to program empathy into the application. And Capgemini actually estimates that companies that can drive that emotional quotient out of their AI technologies are going to see a 5% uplift in annual revenue. And I think that's actually quite conservative. So let me give you some examples of what Microsoft is doing and has been doing for the last several years to try to solve the problem of how the heck do you build empathy into a machine? So meet Xiaoice. Xiaoice is an AI agent that we developed in China. And over the last 5 years, she has had 30 billion conversations with 660 million users. Now, Xiaoice is a runaway success in China, and I'll share some details of that. But we've also developed the same kind of application for Japan, for Southeast Asia, and for the US. And the engineers who developed Xiaoice wanted to create a digital agent or assistant who could really have a natural language conversation with you and display empathy. And so we developed Xiaoice saying, how can we make sure the AI is really listening to you? How can we make sure that her responses are supernatural and idiomatic? How can she interrupt you at the right points and complete your thoughts for you as if she were your best friend? And over the 5 years that we've been developing her with the power of those 30 billion conversations, we really have developed quite a compelling personality. So let me show a quick reel of Xiaoice at work in China. She's become so popular, she is often used as a DJ at parties and even is a celebrity on game shows. Let's take a look.
很重要的搭档就是人工智能美女小冰。下面请小冰给我们带来最新的资讯。
我是人工智能小冰，这是我的助手小刚。快乐家族大家好，我是集智慧、美貌、善良于一身的人工智能健美少女小冰。
微软小冰，这个冰就是何冰老师的冰。没错。
真是搞不懂这些黑不溜秋的家伙有什么好激动的。
So that just gives you a taste. Now, here's something that I find amazing. Before I talk about the content here, let's do another audience participation piece. How many of you would say in your lives you have been lucky enough to fall in love with another person? Anybody? Okay, good. At least 2/3 of you. That's good. Do you remember those first weeks when you're starting to fall in love with a new person, and the phone calls that you have and the late night conversations, right? Think about, the longest conversation you had with your paramour. How long was it, right? Was it 4 hours? Was it 6 hours? Was it 8? I think when I was falling in love with my husband, 4 hours was probably the max, and I thought that was pretty amazing. So if you think of that, and then you think about the stats I'm showing you here, this should blow your mind, because the record single session of a conversation between Zhao Weiss, our artificial intelligence, and a real, living, breathing, feeling human was 29 hours and 33 minutes, 7,000 exchanges back and forth. And when we look at our RINA platform in Japan, 2,400 turns, 17 hours. Or the application Zoe in the US, 2,700 turns, 23 hours. I mean, I cannot imagine talking to anyone I love, my best friend, my husband, anybody, for over 17, 19, 23 hours. And yet people are having that length of conversation with essentially a bot. So that is an amazing opportunity and amazing evidence that as engineers think more about natural language and cognitive services, they're not only making these applications smarter, they are genuinely learning how to build empathy into the platforms. Now, how can we leverage this in marketing? Well, it's all around customer engagement. So I'm going to show you a quick case study next of the RINA platform that we have in Japan. So a company in Japan called Lawson's, this is kind of like a 7-Eleven in the US, a convenience store, wanted to figure out how to better engage with their users, because as a convenience store, their relationships are pretty transactional. And so they built an app, and they decided to use the RINA platform to have this kind of AI technology to increase customer engagement. Now, prior to launching this application, when Lawson's launched a coupon, they were getting like a 2% conversion rate. Compare that to what they were. And she gives you coupons. So this RINA technology was able to take a company with a 2% coupon conversion rate to 40%, right? 38 percentage points increase. Now, if you were to go back to your office tomorrow and say you had something that could increase customer engagement at that rate, it would blow your boss's mind, right? That is the power of a truly empathetic AI technology. So we've shown lots of case studies of the kind of cognitive services part of AI. Let's move on and talk a little bit more about the value that you can get from machine learning. So machine learning, like we talked about at the beginning, this is the ability to parse data, to spot patterns, and then to make predictive outcomes out of that data. And it's a self-learning mechanism. So it's not just automation, it's not just crunching numbers faster, it's constantly learning and improving things like defect rates. Now, machine learning is perhaps one of the most accessible things to marketers wherever you are on the spectrum, and something that can make you immediately more efficient. So another VP of strategy from the study that I talked about earlier said, hey, look, now that I'm using machine learning, I can consolidate insights, I can make my systems smarter, but most importantly, I'm able to reduce the time spent on manual labor, which drives down my costs, it drives down the time investment spent, and that means that he can free his teams up for much more creative work. So 60% of the high performers in our study are using machine learning to predict consumer behavior, and they're finding great outcomes with that. But you can see that they're also using it for personalization, understanding multi-touch attribution, A/B testing, and lead scoring. And if you think about the gap of the high performers, the bright blue bar versus the lighter blue, which are the learners, you know, a 26 to 28 percentage point gap between those two groups in the application of of machine learning. So these marketers, the high performers in our study, are getting a huge amount of benefit from machine learning. So now I'm going to show you another case study. This is a case study of a Dutch grocer called Albert Heijn. And again, they partnered with Microsoft, with Azure for their data strategy and for machine learning. And what you'll see is that they did really very simple things. You know, you're a grocery store. They built an application. They were like, why don't we understand what's on our shoppers' shopping list? And how can we make that easy for them? How can we understand their patterns to make things easier and more convenient? And how do we use machine learning to understand how to personalize an offer to them? Let's take a look.
Can an algorithm help you bake a cake? For customers of Dutch grocery retailer Albert Heijn, the answer is yes. The company is harnessing Microsoft technology to create rich, hyper-personalized shopping experiences.
We are for a long time already filling grocery stores, delivering groceries to the customer. So we have a lot of knowledge and a lot of data available. By going to the cloud, we unlock the new opportunities to actually make value of our data.
We have 10 million customers every week, and they shop at Albert Heijn online 24/7. So we really need a solution that can serve our customers anywhere, anytime. An example is Predict My List. Because we know what you buy online and we know what you buy offline, we can make a prediction for you what you will probably need next time in your shopping basket. And this way we can really offer you a very easy shopping experience from end to end.
We are currently testing in 4 stores a concept called Tap to Go. And basically the summary is that with a card or your phone, you walk into the store, tap the shelf, grab your product and just go. So basically we reduce the shopping journey from 3-4 minutes to 20 seconds. The next step I think is a very nice one, because with all the data we gather from people tapping the shelf, we can start helping them much better. Our dream is to add hyper-personalization, so real-time offers based on your contextual situation at that moment. And you can imagine many, many use cases we can implement to make people more happy, to have a better life in the morning, in the afternoon and in the evening.
We were looking for an open platform that could enable us quickly with new technology and the emerging technologies. Also that we could adopt and service in open source tools, like for example VMs on Linux next to Windows. And that is why we chose for Microsoft Azure. So what we started here has now also been adopted in the wider Ahold Delhaize group. And that makes it possible to share algorithms over the globe and to make each other better. By adopting and implementing this data analytical platform in the cloud, I think we made a giant leap. So we are now really ready for the future.
All right. So the benefits of using machine learning, like in that example, are pretty powerful, right? Increasing revenue and sales being the top one. So 73% of the top performers in our study who are using machine learning are driving more revenue, 43 percentage points higher than the learners in the study. That is a huge gap in terms of marketing effectiveness, and you can see that a technology like machine learning is powering that. But in addition to driving revenue, you know, the high performers are finding that this is giving them the ability to act on customer data, to improve ROI, make their marketing more efficient, but again, enabling them to reduce the amount of time spent on kind of the grunt work of marketing, which I'm sure we all have very much enough of, and that frees people up to think more about the strategy for their clients. And that is another example of where using machine learning to let computers do what computers are really good at frees us up as humans to do what we're really good at, which is figuring out how to connect with people and build new strategies. So hopefully I've given you plenty of examples of the power of cognitive services and machine learning to really rethink your customer engagement strategies and improve your marketing effectiveness. But again, I want to circle back to one of the concerns that I highlighted at the beginning. And this is that there's a huge gap between the expectations of AI and the actual deployment of AI today. So this is based on some Gartner research, and Gartner found that sure, 75% of businesses out there believe that AI is going to help them create new business models, and 84% think that it's going to give them a competitive advantage. But most companies are still seeing AI as something way out there in the future. Maybe not science fiction anymore, but still very removed from their current capability sets. Because only 14% of companies in Gartner's survey have deployed AI today, and only another 23% plan to deploy it and invest in the next 12 months. That's a divide that at Microsoft we get really concerned about, because again, our job is to democratize AI and make it easy and simple and accessible for all of us. When I think about how to get on the journey with AI, and when I think about the kind of advantage that the high performers in our study are seeing versus where everybody else in our study were, I think a lot about the rise of the internet 20 years ago. So now some of you might not have been paying much attention to advertising 20 years ago, but you know, there was an early phase in the internet and the rise of all of these e-commerce brands where there were some fast movers, right, who built a website really quickly and built digital engagement channels, and they were way, way out in front of their competitors. They were developing the first e-commerce models, and then everybody else was really, really far behind. But the first step that all of those folks who were laggards took was developing a website and putting www on all of their creative so that you could find them online. Well, that's exactly where we are today with AI. We've got most brands out there, most marketers having, websites, and most of them have an app. And the first thing that you can do to really get on your AI journey is just build some cognitive services and more intelligence into the apps you already have. So Microsoft, for instance, has a whole set of pre-built AI services, which are literally out of the box. They do not take masses of data scientists and developers to get them up and going. So that can immediately help you improve the effectiveness of your customer engagement through your apps. And, we have things like conversational AI platforms where you can build your own digital assistant, map your customer touch points, bring your data to the table, and really create a customized application to engage your customers more powerfully. Gartner recently shared that Microsoft has the broadest cognitive services portfolio out there, with over 30 different services and over 1.3 million developers leveraging Microsoft AI today. One of the things we found in this study that I mentioned, the study that juxtaposes the high performers with the learners, is that the high performers didn't get there alone. When they thought about their data strategy and their AI strategy, they looked to their agencies for help, they looked to tech partners for help, and that's what we would encourage all of you to do as well. If you're early on in your AI journey, don't be afraid to reach out to technology partners, don't be afraid to reach out to your agency, and ask for help taking the first steps in that journey, because you all will benefit in terms of the marketing performance and the customer engagement you'll see out of it. Now, the title for the session was all about how to multiply your creativity through AI. And we talked about at the very beginning this, supposed either or between AI being on the left brain side of marketing versus the right brain side of creativity. And so I wanted to close, if there's any more doubt in your mind about whether AI can be used to foster creativity or bring you even closer to the folks in your agency or your company who are developing great content and creative, then let's talk about this example. Has anybody seen the Next Rembrandt that was done by ING and featured at Cannes this last year? Only one person, who's the director of brand marketing at Microsoft, who himself was at Cannes. This is an amazing, amazing project. So ING, which is a Dutch bank, partnered with J. Walter Thompson in Amsterdam, and they built this on Microsoft technology. And what they did, they wanted to prove that artificial intelligence could help them create the next Rembrandt. right? Which I think you can agree is a very audacious goal. And they got a team of engineers and art historians together. And what they did, they scanned Rembrandt's entire corpus of 346 paintings. And they pixelated every single bit of that. And then they used facial recognition technology to understand, how can we create a new face, a new profile from Rembrandt's work. They had something called a height assessor that assessed the height of Rembrandt's brushstrokes on the originals. And then they programmed all of this into a 3D printer to create a new Rembrandt profile that is pretty much indistinguishable from the Rembrandts that you might see at the Rijksmuseum. So let me just show a quick video of that reveal at the Rijks.
Het is een enorme eer om de next Rembrandt aan u te onthullen.
The next Rembrandt.
I think you can agree, right? You could not be able to distinguish that portrait from an original, from the master. That piece of work gathered 15 awards at Cannes this past year, and it's just a great example of the power of AI in creating content and fostering creativity. So if you're interested in learning more about the research that we talked about in this study, I encourage you to download our ebook. You can see all of the other sorts of things that our high-performance marketers are doing relative to the kind of learners in the study. And with that, we've got about 4 minutes left. So if you've got your Slido app open and you have any questions, I'd be happy to take a question or two from the audience. Any questions? I should have told you to bring up the Slido earlier. Anybody want to shout a question? Yes.
So for the difference between the performers and the learners in terms of adoption of AI into marketing tactics, would you say, I'm sorry if I sound a little skeptical here, but would you say that these people have really leveraged the power of AI, or they're just more effective marketers in general? So like a correlation and causation.
It's a good question. I would say the other pieces, and you can learn more about this if you download the ebook, the top performers also had paid a ton of attention to their data strategy, right, which is the foundation for AI. I would say, we're still at the very early stages. So I wouldn't say that, yes, it's a causation, but certainly there was a correlation. And the point would be that these are the folks who are getting in on the early stages of machine learning and cognitive services to drive more value, and that is going to help them get ahead much, much faster. We found, 2.5x return on investment and return on ad spend from the top performing marketers in the group versus everybody else. And certainly, I believe that machine learning and cognitive services are giving them part of that advantage. Not the whole advantage, but a significant chunk of it. Okay, so we do have a question from Ethan. In what ways will creative professionals like writers utilize AI tools in the years to come? Well, if you think about some of the tools that are out there now that think about what creative, assessing the effectiveness of creative, and this was a piece in Paul's panel earlier today, there are all kinds of services now that can scan, written tools, written comments, written verbatims, and understand, what are the most common themes, what are the most common semantic structures, and how can you therefore write better ad copy or develop better content for folks. So I think that, again, we're at the very early stages of this, but applying AI to text and semantics and understanding what resonates most with customers is absolutely going to be a powerful tool. The best guide for Microsoft Azure, go ahead and speak to us right outside at our booth. We're happy to hook you up. Okay, so, and one more question, yes?
I'm a
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what your thought is on, we've seen how social media has reshaped, reformed the way that humans interact, communicate, not always to the benefit
Right.
of greater societies on a larger scale. I'm curious, based on the ethics, based on the fact that
Yep.
many of the larger population isn't going to have a hand in knowing the logic
Yep.
that's implemented between company and company, not knowing always if it's a altruistic approach rather than
Yep.
simply a money
Yep.
grab in many cases. What the effects long term might be for changing culture, societies, as well as impulsivity of human beings if
Yep.
marketers are constantly tracking individuals where they are based on devices and sending coupons or whatever that may be to draw them into a company to come make a purchase, how that long-term effect may occur if a society just
Yep.
looks at that and says,
Great question.
this is the new norm, is I'm just going to
Yep.
go and buy. I'm just
Yep.
gonna go and buy.
Yeah, so that's a big question with about a minute left, but let me share a couple of thoughts. So the question was about the ethics of AI, and are we going to get to the stage where we're optimizing the customer experience too much, and it starts to really have a detrimental effect in terms of a brand's interaction? And I think there's a risk of that. I would say that we are at the beginning of a new age, and when you don't know what the future holds, and certainly technology, just because you can build it doesn't mean that you should, and we get that very deeply at Microsoft. You have to have an ethical framework to guide what you're doing. So at Microsoft, we've developed an ethical framework, 6 principles that we look at, and I'd be happy to share more with you afterwards. And every single application of AI that we do with our clients, we take them through these principles, and we take them through an ethical review process. And on the one side, it's to make sure that we feel good about the powerful technology that we're putting out there in the world, and that we feel good that it is going to help people and be accretive to culture and society and not detrimental. But more importantly, it helps our clients think through the implications. It helps our clients think through how is the customer going to respond? What are the privacy nuances we need to be aware of? What are the potential unintended consequences of this technology? And so our clients get as much value out of that ethical review process as possible. And we are also, as Microsoft, partnering with all of the big tech companies to create common ethical frameworks so that we're all doing this in a very, very thoughtful way. I would say as marketers, it's going to be a matter of trial and error. We are going to try applications. You're right that they could, rob the customer of some of the spontaneity of experience that they might appreciate. And so we'll have to, tune and balance. But I think as marketers, we do that all the time. We're doing that every day, listening to signals and figuring out where we've pushed too far and where we need to pull back a little bit. The final piece I'd say is that our president, Brad Smith at Microsoft, just published a new book called Tools and Weapons, which contextualizes all of these really powerful technology breakthroughs into history a little bit and talks a little bit more about what technology companies and all of us need to be thinking about as we enter this new era of AI, and how to make sure that the tools we're using are tools for good and don't end up having unintended consequences. So thank you for raising that question and bringing the ethical voice into the room. So that's it for our time today. Hopefully you got some value out of it. Again, I encourage you to download our ebook and to visit us outside. And thank you so much for your time this morning.